Hi everyone, welcome to New England Cooks Presents The Beer Talk. This is Jason Strempek.
And I'm not Jeff Baker, but he is.
Thanks for joining us.
My partner
Jason,
in
thanks
crime.
for joining us.
Oh,
It's good to see you again.
I'm glad to be here. And I love this part of the show because usually right when we start, we get right into the beer. And by that, I mean into the fridge. So I'm just going to grab a couple of beers here real quick, Jeff, if you don't mind. I brought a couple of special ones. Stone Buenaveza, which is one of the beers that we'll talk about, is what we're going to start off with.
Awesome.
Those of you that did watch the podcast, What's in the Fridge was one of my favorite segments. It just wet our whistle a little before we were going to get on and groove about some beers. Those of you that are wondering, what is that bottle that he's drinking? This is Stone Buenaveza. Stone, as most of you know, has been around since probably '96 or so.
Exactly.
But this is a new one for them in the last year or so, and it's a salt and lime lager. Those of you that like Corona, check out the craft version of Corona in Buenaveza. It's not just in bottles, it's in cans, but I think you'll find it's very refreshing.
You know, this time of year, Jason, I like to start thinking about and remembering the good times on the beach and on the boat. And so to having a bottle in your hand and really, tasting that summery salt and lime with the lager, like it just, it's getting chilly out at night and this warms me right back up.
Jeff, I always have something very passionate to say about beer, and that's why I like drinking beer with him. So those of you that seen the show, we've done some specialty stuff, right? Oktoberfest, we've talked about ciders already.
Yep.
And for this show, we thought we'd take it up a little bit different. East Coast versus West Coast, sometimes that's been thrown around. We like to say sometimes old friends and new friends.
That's right. Some of our friends go back to 1979 with Ken Grossman, founded Sierra Nevada Brewing Company in California. And then some of our newer friends, they just opened in 2010.
Right.
Up in Massachusetts. So
Right.
I think we should talk about a few different things here, Jason. Not only old friends, new friends, reminisce about some of the good times. But we should also talk about the styles because, as you alluded to, there is this kind of East Coast, West Coast hip-hop rap battle.
Right.
But in the craft brewing industry, is it hazy? Is it bright and filtered? Is it coming back to the other one? There's a whole bunch of fun things to talk about here.
And you've heard New England style, you've heard Vermont style. Really, when you think about those styles, if you will, they're definitely that. They're hazy. And I think a lot of us started enjoying beverages that were originated on the West Coast. They didn't have any haze to them. In fact, they were a little darker than the haze. They were clear. They were roasty. That hop profile that we've all known to enjoy and love, a lot of times you get that on the back of the beer rather than the nose and the front.
Right. And Sierra Nevada, as we were kind of kicking this whole thing off with, really was the forerunner of the modern craft brewing, I don't want to say revolution, but scene, if you will. And that team really embraced the Cascade hop, right? And that's what kind of set the West Coast IPA apart, was this Cascade hop. It was piney and it was bitter and it had some citrus, but it was mostly about that piney aroma, that kind of pungent aroma that parts of California are known for, if you know what I mean.
Sierra Nevada Pale Ale was like the original IPA to a lot of folks. So, and I think today it's still the old reliable. A lot of people have it in the fridge. I might not have a Pale Ale in the fridge, but I bet you I have a Hoptimum in the fridge because I put it there earlier.
Well, while you grab that, Jason, let me just talk about IPA briefly. So IPA is invented in England, right? And you've got the India Pale Ale because it was being exported to India, not coming from India, right? It's going from England to India. And it was hoppier than the bitters that they had at the time. Counterintuitively, a bitter is actually less bitter than an IPA.
Isn't that funny?
Isn't that?
Yeah.
So you've got the India Pale Ale, which is a little bit more bitter and a little bit more hoppy. And then that brewing tradition, Jason, comes from England, which is over here.
Oh.
And then it comes over here to New England.
Yeah.
And then in New England,
our new friends,
we get the New England, not the New England style IPA. We're not there yet. We just get the American IPA. And that's typified, Jason, by some of our oldest friends there at Harpoon. Right? Harpoon IPA is really the quintessential, East Coast IPA.
Might have been the first IPA in a can. I'm not sure, but it was definitely one of them.
We'll have Ryan, the can stealer, check that fact during the break. And so then, Jason, that drifts across the country, and actually that came later. But you get this style difference on the other side of the country, which is more bitter and more piney, to your point. So let's check out the Hoptimum there.
Yeah. So let's pour these into a glass. We're going to start with a Hoptimum, and then we're going to do an East Coast haze, just to give you an idea on what we were talking about. You can see this has a little darkness in color because it is in fact West Coast. It's malt forward. But when you put it together with this East Coast IPA, that's certainly lighter. It's certainly hazier. One of the things about these hazy beers is, unfortunately, they don't have the longest shelf life. They have an expiration date that comes up because these beers are known for losing their aromas, which is very important characteristic of the beer, and then losing some of that, that citrus that comes from the hop that provides the aroma as well. Sometimes these malt-forward beers can get a little extra distance in them, if you will.
Well, and you're putting a little extra distance on the conversation already, because now you've jumped back to the new East Coast, to the New England Style IPA. So we had the East Coast IPA, we had the West Coast IPA, now we have the New England Style IPA, which is originated here in the Green Mountain State. You can look up the history. It's in the books, Jason.
I know it is. I read it in a book.
It happened in Vermont. And you get this hazy, juicy thing where low bitterness, no, hardly any bitterness really. Some of them, just juicy, citrus, piney. And what you're saying is that they fade quickly. And the reason they fade quickly is they're reliant on dry hopping. And that's where you get those big pungent aromas, but those aromas fade.
And those of you know that Vermont's putting out some amazing beers. There must be 50 breweries that we're partners with a lot of, and it's helped the craft industry, if you will, build up this style, to your point, and everyone's doing one. Don't get me wrong, Sierra Nevada has a hazier style as well. Right. But we usually feature and talk about Vermont beers. When we talk about old friends and new friends, we wanted to bring your attention to a couple of new friends over from the East Coast. So why don't we start with Wormtown out of Massachusetts? Yeah,
so founded in 2010, some of the youngest players up here, but still, 11 years in, that's pretty respectable.
Yeah, and it was a draft-heavy brand. Hoppy is one of the staples. And I would say that that's actually their West Coast style, but it was on draft everywhere in Massachusetts. Exactly. And this just goes to show you, don't worry, be hoppy. Everyone's having fun with it, right? You got can and packaging and the names of beers, lots of fun to it. They're making some excellent beer. So that's out of Massachusetts. They've opened up a second production facility in Patriot Place. They have two large breweries happening in Massachusetts. And since we stand in Vermont, we actually have some Wormtown with us. It goes to show you how they're expanding their footprint as well.
And I like that on the shelf it says, don't worry, be hoppy.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
And that, to your point, this is the don't worry that I poured, nice and juicy, citrusy, hazy IPA. Also some new friends of ours from the East Coast. SweetWater Brewing Company just opened up the Vermont market a few months ago. And today we brought their flagship, the 420 Extra Pale Ale. This was the first beer that rolled off the line. You might ask yourself, Jason, why 420 Pale Ale? And I'll tell you that it's because they opened the brewery on April 20th.
What were you thinking?
Were you thinking drink them if you got them?
That's what I'm thinking.
Because if you direct your attention to the other beer, the haze, so the Extra Pale Ale, that's that kind of like maltier East Coast style pale ale, right? And then you direct your attention to G13 IPA, and you might say, I've heard the phrase G13 before, and don't worry, Jason, this is for recreational use only, as the brewery says. And what they've done here is they've taken terpenes, which are aromatic compounds, and they've recreated the aroma profile of the infamous G13, let's say strain.
Strain.
Yeah, let's just say strain.
You don't need a prescription from your doctor?
Nope, you don't need a card for this.
Wow.
But when you go to take a sip of it, you might find yourself reaching for a lighter and wondering where you left it, because it's all there, my friend. It's very pungent.
In the nose and on the palate. Yeah. So SweetWater's been hanging out since 1997, I believe. They're out of Atlanta, Georgia, and believe it or not, the number 11 craft brewery in the country, and I think they've only distributed in half of the country so far. I know they have plans to expand, but I know we're lucky to have them in Vermont, and I've been enjoying quite a few of the.
You always have the numbers. I love it. He's got the dates. He's got what rank they are. He knows how many downloads they have.
Did you have the Buenaveza?
I did. I'm really enjoying the Buenaveza.
To tie it back into the West Coast, we've already talked about Stone and the Buenaveza. It's a great beer. I encourage you to try it on the lighter side, because one of the things that Stone was always known for is big, bold IPAs, right? This is when there were no cans. They told us beer in cans was a bad idea. And big, giant, what do you call the big, giant bottles? everybody had a
Bombers.
different name for
Remember
it.
the
But
Bomber?
Bombers was probably the most popular name.
Did they really bomb after a while?
And they kind of just went to the wayside, and Stone adjusted accordingly. But you know, this is a great lighter style for them. They usually test out things first with a lot of test markets, and this one stuck around. We also are featuring Delicious IPA, which a lot of folks don't know. It's gluten reduced. It's still 7% lemon drop Eldorado hops. Comes in a can. It's one of my favorite Stone beers, and I could go gluten or gluten reduced either way, and just not know the difference. It's an excellent beer.
You know, I think some of these gluten-reduced beers that, you know, I'm fine with gluten, but sometimes I find that drinking the gluten-reduced beers like this or Little Wolf from Zero Gravity, they feel a little lighter, you know?
You don't get the bloat.
You have a couple and you feel okay. But I remember we went down to Escondido, which is San Diego, right outside, and we had a great time hanging out with Greg and the whole team there at Stone, and just what a fun group of people. And
they have like a theme park down there. Some people like to call them breweries. I like to call them theme parks.
That's right.
Stone is very present in California. They're present now in Richmond, Virginia, and it's definitely one of the highlights in my career, and certainly it's something I would encourage you to go seek out and visit. Same with Sierra Nevada. We're talking about Greg Cook. We're talking about Ken Grossman, two buddies, if you will, that are iconic. They really helped grow this industry. We chose Hoptimum here. It's a triple IPA. They're 11%. Everyone knows Pale Ale, right? You know Torpedo, you know Hazy little thing. Hoptimum is something that comes out every once in a while, once a year. It's very, very bold, and the hops are really in your face. When you don't see Hoptimum, you can look for Bigfoot, which everybody looks for, barley style wine.
Next one.
And then also Narwhal, which is a delicious imperial stout. But that's in a series by itself, and I'm glad that we're able to present some Hoptimum and sip off of that today as well.
You talk about, you know, Stone being a theme park or a destination, right? When we went to Sierra Nevada down there in North Carolina, right outside of Asheville, Mills River, exactly. When we were pulling in the gate and the gates opened, Jason, I felt like we were going into Jurassic Park.
I thought I saw
those
Mickey
gates
Mouse.
Open, and there we were, and we come around the bend, and this beautiful brewery, and you can see the brew house through the window, and you can see, you know, hundreds of people in the beer hall having dinner and lunch and all this. I mean, the food there was incredible. That's another thing, you know, some of these breweries just really cultivate food and beer pairing really well. And so to show mostly IPAs today, but, you know, have that style and that breadth of brewing. You know, all of these breweries make nice porters, stouts, lagers as well. So, you know, we featured IPAs, but it's not just IPA time.
Right. It's East Coast and West Coast. So my thoughts are this. You can wait in line for beer all you want, but there's such great beers out there, and I just feel like everything's kind of worth a shot. Dial in on that style. You know, recognize where it came from. Recognize that it may be hazy or not, but it's still an IPA. So if you love IPAs, you know, give some of these things a shot. I know in Vermont we are, and we're drinking lots of beer.
It's a little bit of occupational hazard sometime, but I really appreciate hanging out with you, Jason. I'm glad we got to do this again, and hopefully some more episodes coming up real soon.
Yeah, and maybe another brewery trip too.
That's right. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers.